Psalms chapter 42. All right, I got some of your attention real quick there, right, guys? Some of you aren't going to be able to pay attention for the rest of the message, Jeremiah. Abe, see? I told you. I have been often for some time now giving Abraham Thorpe an opportunity to take my notes on the way up and teach or preach for me, and he has declined thus far, and I said, if you're going to ever do it, this would be the one. This would be the one. So what you see in front of you, I figured I'd have a little fun with it at just the least. Those are some beautiful creatures, aren't they? They're pretty impressive. What we're going to look at here is in Psalms chapter 42, the beginning of the text that we're going to read says, as the hart panteth after the water brooks. So in an introduction this morning, I would like to consider what the heart is. And then really there's just one point that I want to drive this morning. It will come obviously through the course of the message. It's not going to appear to be just one point by the time we're done. So don't get too excited that it's just going to be one point and then done. So you'll see how it comes. But what I want to talk about this morning is a heart's desire. A heart's desire. Here's a few facts I looked up about deer. Now, anybody know what a heart is, by the way? It's kind of obvious, all right, from the get-go. A heart, as we would read about in the scriptures, and as is, not uncommon for the word to be used nowadays, is a male deer. It's a mature male deer. The definition that I read is that it's at least 5 years old, but that's what a heart is. It's a deer. It's a deer. Now, in this part of the country, in this area, there are many men who are in this congregation here today who are happy that we have a plentiful supply of deer all throughout the year, except seemingly for hunting season, right? Once hunting season comes along, it seems like they all disappear and they go maybe down south or somewhere else. But here's just a few fun facts about deer. A normal deer can run anywhere between 30 to 40 miles per hour. Most of what I read kind of zeroed in around 30, but I saw some facts that some can go as fast as 40 miles per hour. So when they hear you, or when they see your rifle raise, or when they hear you pull back, you know what they're ready to do? They're ready to run away from you as fast as they can. And when you see them running, that's how fast they are potentially going. A whitetail deer can jump as high as 15 feet in the air. 15 feet. I saw some numbers of 10 feet, but I'm taking the highest one that I found, at least 10 to 15 feet in the air. Now, a normal basketball rim is how high? 10 feet. So a whitetail deer can jump as high as a basketball rim at the least. And if you've ever seen it happen, it's a thing of beauty, isn't it? We have deer that even in West Seneca, we live on East and West Road. And our lot that we live in, we actually have an acre of property right there in West Seneca. And the way it runs is we're across the street from where the creek runs. And there's a lot of kind of wooded space there. But even behind us, there's some wooded space between us and the next development over. And we have a tremendous amount of deer that walk through our backyard, much to our disliking, actually, because they can become more of a nuisance than anything. They leave things behind, so on and so forth. It was just last year that I turned the corner from our road onto Orchard Park Road, just barely missed a doe. Unfortunately, the car behind me did not miss the doe, clipped the doe on the right front corner of their car, and I'm not kidding, that doe went 15 feet up in the air, end over end, and unfortunately landed with 2 broken back legs and dragged itself off into the field. They can be a nuisance. They really can, and it's unfortunate. But our dog Ember absolutely loves the fact that deer walk through our backyard. Any kind of animal, whether it's squirrel, rabbit, or chipmunk, or anything but deer, she does not. Our property and just our neighbors next to us, that is her domain. That's Ember's domain. And she does not like to share it with any other animal, in particular deer. And so Ember, as soon as she wakes up in the morning, the first thing she wants to do is go outside, make sure that the yard is empty. All throughout the day, last thing at night, if there are deer out in the yard, she'll kind of do her Irish setter pointing thing. She'll walk up to it slowly to make sure that they don't notice her. She'll pick up her right leg and she'll look, and she doesn't necessarily need to wait for me to give her the go-ahead, but sometimes I'll say, go get him, and she's off. And she chases them off of the property, and once they get into the wooded area, she doesn't go after. That's it. She stops. She just wants them gone. But those deer, when they run and they get to that wooded section, in part of our property, we have a bunch of trees that are cut down, and so there's some high stumps and different things. Just in a moment, those deer just, it's like they're on a springboard. It's like they're diving into a pool or something. They just jump right up and hop, and it's a thing of beauty. If you've ever seen it. At least 10 to 15 high, that's what they can do. A deer's eyes are on the side of their head, and because of that, they have 310-degree vision. So typically, as we with our front-facing eyes, we typically will have about 180-degree vision. I think those with peripheral vision may have a little bit more. That is more than some, but 310 degrees is what they can see. Now, I read that a deer does not have very good eyesight. They think possibly that they might be, I don't know how they know this stuff. What in the world? I don't know. Maybe they can take an eye out of a dead deer, and maybe they are able to dissect the parts of it. I don't know. I'm just passing the information along to you. That's all. But they say a deer possibly is colorblind, but also has a lower resolution of eyesight, does not have the type of vision that you and I, even as humans, have. And so I don't know if that's true, but they can see quite a bit around them. Here's another good fact about deer. Deer taste good. Right? Can I get a witness from all those who appreciate that? I know that some don't like that gamey meat and taste and whatnot. My wife and I, and even our girls, love it. Tastes absolutely delicious. Here's a record for you, all right? You see these deer behind me. You guys are, so now I'm giving you all this stuff. I have to give the disclaimer. I don't hunt, all right? I have never hunted. It's not for lack of desire. It's probably more for lack of opportunity and just lack of just going down that road, maybe one day. But I do not hunt. But I know that for those of you who are already getting ready for hunting season, when you see that behind me, like, you're salivating, right? You're drooling for a couple reasons, because you can taste it and because you can see that hanging on your wall, right? Where you're taking down some of the family pictures and you're putting that up instead as your wife is standing by just wondering what in the world are you doing. Here's a fun fact. This is the largest, the record rack, the record deer that is out there right now that I could actually determine myself. On November 7th, 2016, Stephen Tucker from Tennessee, shot a record 47-point whitetail buck. 47 points. Some of you may even have seen this, if perhaps you've even looked this up. I don't know. I could have put it up there, but I decided not to. But it ended up scoring 312 3/8 inches is what it ended up scoring. Now, that's the record rack that has been shot. Now, the interesting thing is that this fella, Stephen Taylor, he actually saw this amazing deer 2 days prior to that, so on November 5th, during muzzleloader season. And he saw it, he was within range, and he lifted up and he pulled the trigger, and the only thing that went off was the primer cap. And the thing ran off and went away. Now, how many of you can sympathize with that? Go ahead and give me a witness or raise your hand. You know, how many times have you had that? But 2 days later, he saw it again, and he shot that thing. There was a larger deer that has been found. It was found dead. It was not shot. And I believe it scored 333 7/8 inches, I think, is what they scored that thing. And that's the largest to be found on record that wasn't killed. A lot of crazy things about deer, right? And we get excited about some of those things around here. Well, the Bible tells us a fact about deer in Psalms chapter 42. Look at what it says. Let's read verses 1 and 2, and then let's talk about what this Bible says about the heart. It says in verse 1 and 2, as the hart panteth after the water brooks, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. My soul thirsteth for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? The fact is simple. The lesson is easy to learn. If you didn't know this prior to reading these verses, you know it now, is that a hart pants after the water brooks. A deer pants after the water brooks. The word pant means to long for, to desire affectionately and passionately. We could understand it even in a very simple and practical term. When you are dehydrated and it's a hot day out and you know that there's some cold water nearby and you've been working hard, what are you doing? You are panting for that water. You are panting for it. You are desiring it in your heart, in your soul, and on your taste buds. You can just feel that cool, refreshing water entering your mouth and going down and just giving you what it does. And we'll talk about that here in a second. That's what a hart pants for, is the water brooks, the same way as you would pant for it. Oh, I need that. I want that. It would give me everything that I desire right now. That's what the hart pants for, the hart, panting after the water brooks. So as the hart walks through the wilderness, as he walks through the meadows and through the landscapes, up and down the hills, evading Jeremiah and Abe Thorpe and trying to look for shelter or whatever it might be, looking for food, part of that process and part of that experience that the deer, the hart experience is panting after just a cool water brook that might be flowing nearby. Now, I've wondered and have just thought about why would the hart pant after the water brook, and I have come up with 3 reasons, very simple, very practical, why a hart would pant after the water brooks. And we can kind of determine this very simply by considering a hart's desire, what a hart desires in its existence, in its very existence of being alive and God giving it life. The first thing that a hart desires, it's a hard thing to understand or a hard thing to appreciate. A hart desires to be alive. It desires to stay alive. It's that natural instinct that God put in all of creation. They call it survival of the fittest, that a hart just wants to keep living. He wants to keep living. And of course, it is required for a hart to stay alive. It is required for that hart to drink what? To drink water. A hart, just like you and I, will not be able to exist, will not be able to continue living without drinking water. Without drinking water. And so naturally, a hart will want to come upon that cool water brook that is flowing ever so gently, that is easily approached and has just a wonderful shoreline that hart can just come upon that water brook, take a drink of that water, and sustain its own life. Just stay alive. That's what a hart desires. A hart desires the water of life. The water of life to continue to experience life as it is. Now, there are some difficulties in life. We all know that, even for a deer, even for a hart, especially in the season that's coming up. A hart has to survive. It has to find food. It has to find shelter. It has to evade danger. But I have no doubt that because a hart is part of God's creation, that a hart gets satisfaction out of living as well. A hart experiences good moments and good days. And I've often wondered this about the animals and God's creation, but there have been some beautiful sunsets this year, haven't there? There have been some absolutely beautiful sunsets, maybe some sunrises that you've seen, maybe some mountainscapes that you've seen, or whatever it might be, and we're about to see the colors change, and it's going to be beautiful around here. I wonder if God's creation outside of mankind stops for a moment and is able to appreciate that. I think in some way that they do. I don't know. I'd like to think that they do. And I'd like to think that they know why it looks so beautiful. Because they are God's creation, because God created them. And because why were they created? For his pleasure. They have some kind of connection, right? We don't know what it is. But I wonder if, they're able, a hart as he goes through the meadow and up and down the hills, and I wonder if a hart is able just to be able to appreciate a gentle breeze. to be able to appreciate a beautiful flower growing along the way. I wonder if a hart, after a long day's effort of staying alive or of journeying, is just able to anticipate just a good night's sleep. Where he walks up to his thicket or whatever it is where he's bedding and just drops down and just says, you know what? I've earned this moment and I'm going to enjoy it. You know what that is? We're going to look at it. It's not just life, but it's abundant life. That's what it is. And you know what a hart desires? Just to keep living. Not only to survive, but to enjoy life as well. You know what a hart also desires? Water of refreshing. You know what refreshing is? It's relief after fatigue or suffering. That's what refreshing is. And it's easy to understand that life is what it is. It often fatigues us and it often brings suffering into our lives, not only into our lives, but into a deer's life as well. Imagine how fatigued a deer can be, especially in the months to come here, as they are trying to survive and as they're trying to be alert and to be aware, kind of always having their senses at just a high level and trying to find food and trying to keep away from danger. Imagine how tiring and imagine how exhausting that can be. Imagine how just how much toil that causes. And at the end of the day, when the darkness finally sets in and that deer is able to find kind of that little haven of rest wherever it is bedding, imagine how tired that deer is. And as that deer walks through the day and goes through its life and its experiences, imagine just how physically exhausted it becomes and how mentally exhausted it becomes with what seemingly seems to be never-ending toil and unrest through life. And as that deer starts to pant, you know what it's starting to long for? Just a cool drink from a nice brook. A nice cold brook that it can come on and it can just stop for a moment in life, can bow its head down and just take a few drinks of water into its mouth. And just in that single moment of time, put all the cares of its life away, put all of the worries and all of the concerns, probably not if it's hunting season because, who wouldn't mind having a deer that's preoccupied with drinking out of a riverbed, with its broadside completely exposed. But that deer in that moment comes on that brook and just is thinking, yes, I need that. You understand why? It's because the deer desires refreshing. A deer pants after the water brook because it desires that relief from fatigue and from suffering. Not only that, but a hart's desires for satisfaction. I really do think this. I think a hart desires satisfaction. Now, sometimes a hart will come up to a brook of water and it's not tired. It's not fatigued. It's not suffering. It doesn't necessarily need that water to keep living in that moment, but you know what inevitably that deer will probably do? He'll probably just dip his head down and say, hey, that water looks really good. That water looks cold and refreshing. And just starts drinking it up. It's like my dog. We were at Stony Brook Campground Thursday through Saturday, and they've got the gorge there if you've ever been to Stony Brook, and you can actually get a campsite that goes right up against the creek bed there. And Ember, I'm telling you, that dog is crazy. Lives to be outside, lives to run. But that dog walking and running by a waterbed, a creek bed, or coming up, even a puddle in the road, it doesn't matter. Every single time, whether she needs it or not, you know what she does? She licks it up. She could be running by 30 miles an hour, or however fast the dog goes, and just let that tongue hang out as it goes by and just let it drag right along the ground and get some of that water up there. Partly probably because, she's fatigued from running so much, but I think because of how much she drinks water, even if she's just slowly walking through that riverbed, you know what? She just nonstop slurping that water up as she walks through. You know what I think she's doing that for? is because she loves it. She loves the water. I think a hart pants after the water brooks because just that water is just great. It's cool. It's refreshing. It's calm. It's peaceful just to be in that moment, in that peaceful, serene moment of hearing the water go by and feeling that gentle breeze. Boy, deer seem really human-like the way we're talking about it this morning, doesn't it? But just for satisfaction, just for enjoying it. These are a heart's desire that brings it to what we read about in Psalms chapter 42. And maybe you can get creative and you can think of a couple other reasons why. But this is what we read. Because of a heart's desire, it pants after the water brooks. Now, this is what I want you to notice, though. I bring those things up because we understand water isn't just meaningless, right? We understand that water brings purpose. It brings fulfillment. It brings something to the heart, to the deer. It brings all of these things to the deer. Life and refreshing and satisfaction. But this is what I want you to notice, that the verse doesn't say that the heart pants after any of these things. The heart doesn't pant after life. The heart doesn't pant for refreshing, in the words of the verse. The heart doesn't pant for satisfaction. The heart doesn't spend its time when it finds itself in these moments of needing life or of needing refreshing or of needing satisfaction. It doesn't spend its day wandering through the wilderness looking for these things. But instead, you know what the heart is looking for? He's looking for the water brooks. That's what the heart is looking for. In other words, the heart, in his God-given wisdom and knowledge, knows that in order to have life, refreshing, and satisfaction, he must go to the source of life, refreshing, and satisfaction. And for the heart, the source of all those things is the water brook. And so you know what the heart pants for? The heart pants for the water brook. The heart longs passionately and affectionately for the water brook itself, the source of all things that the heart desires. Are you starting to get it? That's what the heart is longing for. Now, what about us? What about our heart's desire? What about what we long for? What about what we desire? What about what we crave in our life? You know what? Man longs for the same things that the heart longs for. Man desires the same thing in his or her heart that the heart longs for. You know what man longs for? Life. Man longs for life. You know what a man is afraid of? One of the greatest fears that embraces mankind isn't the fear of heights, isn't the fear of spiders, isn't the fear of darkness or whatever it might be. You know what man is afraid of? Dying. Man is afraid of dying. And because of that, you know what man will do? Man will spend his entire life doing everything he can either to ignore it, to occupy his mind, to occupy his life, and to occupy his heart so that he can be distracted from the reality that life is short, that life is fleeting, and that the last breath is coming soon. Or man will do everything he can to be able to make sure that when this life is over, it won't end. Because man desires life. Man desires life and is always wondering, what is next? What happens after this life? What will happen to me? Will I continue to exist? Will I stop existing? Will I cease to exist? Will I become something else? Or will I go to heaven? Will I go to hell? That's what man is occupied with in this desire and this longing for life. And not only that, man doesn't just desire life, but you know what he desires? He desires abundant life. He desires to be able to enjoy life. That's why man goes golfing. That's why man sits there on the couch and cheers and roots for a football team that will break their heart year in and year out just because they desire abundant life. They just want to be champs just for once because it'll bring some kind of satisfaction to them, right? Some kind of joy. That's, that abundant life of putting their hands to those things that they enjoy, those hobbies and those desires and having those possessions that enhance their life and make it something better. Man will spend his entire life trying to enhance his life because that's what he desires. Not only that, but man desires refreshing. I don't have to ask for a witness or for a testimony on this because you've given it so many times before. But life can be exhausting, can't it? Life can be full of toil, full of torment. Life can be full of things that fatigue us and bring us to our wits' end. And you know what we become in those moments? We become exhausted and thirsty. We become thirsty for something that will refresh us, something that will give us relief, something that will give us help that we need. Refreshing means this, again, relief after fatigue or suffering. We just want the pain to stop. We want the sorrow to stop. We want the depression. We want the hurt. We want the frustrations. And if they don't stop, we just want a break from them. We just want a moment where we can just put ourselves at ease and where we can just stop and where we can rest and we can recoup a little bit and where we can just kind of put life aside for a second. That's what man desires. Toiling all life long, looking for things that, again, can distract them from the worries and from the cares and from the toils of life. Man just desires refreshing. Not only that, man just desires satisfaction. Again, sports, hobbies, travel, cars, houses, possessions, career, relationships, whatever it might be, man just wants to be satisfied in life, wants to be fulfilled, wants to be able to appreciate the fact that he comes to a point where he doesn't have to keep chasing anymore. Because the rat race of life, sometimes that's all it seems to be. It's just kind of chasing, being on a wild goose hunt, trying to gain something that we can't ever seem to achieve. Isn't it crazy that man would desire the same thing that a heart would desire? Now, this is the problem, though. That for these things that a man desires, life, refreshing, and satisfaction, for some reason, man goes looking for life, refreshing, and satisfaction in all the wrong places. In all the wrong places. Man will spend his entire life looking for life, refreshing, and satisfaction, and will go to the grave without ever having found even one of his heart's desires. Unfulfilled, without life, without hope, without satisfaction, in that moment of their last breath, thinking to themselves, was it even worth it? Now, we live some good lives. Sometimes I think we're so spoiled that we can't appreciate what so many around the world experience and suffer from. I guarantee you there are those who come to the end of their life and wish they had never lived in the first place. And you might even be in a phase in your life right now where you wish that you weren't alive. What's the point of living? Everything that I do and everything that I long for never seems to come to the fulfilling and satisfaction of my soul. I never seem to be able to achieve it and gain it. It's just, again, that rat race of just spinning in circles and coming to my wit's end. What is even the point of living anymore? And isn't it sad and isn't it a shame that so many have come to that point and have given into it and have surrendered and have even taken their own life? Why is that? Why is that? If by chance man happens to stumble upon some semblance of life, refreshing, and satisfaction, unfortunately for so many and for the majority of mankind, he too quickly discovers that it is only temporary and ultimately goes to the grave with him in death. All these things that he desires and all these things that he's longing for, Man will search for life, this idea of trying to come up with an answer of what happens for this life. He'll search for the truth in religion. He'll search for the truth in science. He'll search for the truth in education. He'll search for the truth in the opinions and the thoughts and the comments of those who will be the leaders in their fields. Maybe it be those same things of religion and science and education, or maybe even just go to his friends or his family and say, what do you think? What's going to happen to me? And man will endlessly search for those things and will come to his dying breath never having found the answer, never being convinced, and only being left with one small hope that maybe, just maybe, I'll be okay after I die. No confidence at all, no real hope, nothing there. Man will drown his life because of how tired he is and how frustrated and how overcome, will drown his sorrows in a bottle. And will drink and will try to kind of push life aside by consuming himself with addiction, whether it be alcohol or drugs or pornography or the endless pursuit for success or money, and will try to put off the cares and troubles of this life by endless pursuits of things that never satisfy and never fulfill. That's what man will do. And his intentions are to be able to find some kind of refreshing, so that he can have some relief. Man will look for satisfaction in trying to gain status and trying to gain success and wealth and toys and opportunity and experiences. Yet when those moments are fleeting in their own right, is only left wanting more and needing more. It's amazing. My daughter, what she realized very recently, and it is consuming her, is that life goes by quickly. And as quickly as life goes by, that the moments of life are almost like a blink of an eye. We just got to the end of a 3-day camping trip, and she said, I can't believe it's over already. And you know what? That is just, it's like the microcosm of life there. That's the essence of life, is that you can experience something that brings satisfaction to you, but then it's gone. It's just disappeared like a vapor. And you're left, because you're looking for that satisfaction, you're left wanting more. And that's why man goes through this endless pursuit. Now, Mark chapter 8, verse 36 says, for what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Again, man might find some kind of small glimmer of hope in life based on religion or science or some false gospel. Might be able to find some kind of refreshing and some kind of satisfaction. But you know what? If it's outside of God and that man dies, it all goes to the grave with him. And he burns in a lake of fire forever and ever. For those who have lived out this fate, for those who will live out this fate, and maybe you are living this fate out, they have failed to discover the truth of Psalms chapter 42, verses 1 and 2. They panted after the wrong things. You know what they panted for? They panted for life. Not a bad thing to desire, but they panted for refreshing. They panted for satisfaction. They passionately and affectionately longed for it and desired so much of it that they spent their life pursuing it and trying to find it. They failed to understand that instead of endlessly panting for life, refreshing, and satisfaction, they should have panted after the source of life, refreshing, and satisfaction. Let's read Psalms chapter 42, verses 1 and 2. As we read this, and we're here right at the end, believe it or not. As we read this, I want you to ask yourself, what are you panting after? What are you thirsting for? What are you looking for? As the hart panteth after the water brooks, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. My soul thirsteth for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? I don't know what is going on inside of your heart, inside of your mind right now, but think about your average day. Think about your experience of waking up in the morning. Think about your experience of getting ready for the day, and once you're prepared, getting to it, just off we go. Think about getting to work. Think about driving around town, running your errands, facing the phone calls, answering the texts, checking in on the news, scrolling through Instagram and Facebook, making sure you're up to date, dealing with the troubles, the trials that you're faced with, that you're experiencing, suffering through the pain that consumes your body, the mental anguish of being overwhelmed and being overcome. Think about what your typical day is like. Coming home at the end of the workday, what are you longing for? What are you ready for? I forgot, I got to mow the lawn. I got to go pick up the car from the mechanic. I got to go get groceries. You know, I'm going through the rest of the day of what it is and preparing dinner perhaps, eating dinner, knowing in your heart of hearts that you got to spend time with your kids because you only have a few moments left, and just being so overcome with the fact that I've just got too much going on in my life because I can't even take a second and hit the volleyball with my daughter. What is your day like? And then as the day winds down, what do you want to do at the end of the day? Ooh, it's Thursday night. Or wait, it's Monday night. What are you going to want to do Monday night? Nothing wrong with that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll be doing the same thing that you're doing on Monday night until it starts to get stressful. I might go do something else. But what about when it's not Monday night? What about Tuesday night? What about Thursday night? Maybe you'll be here Wednesday night. What about Friday night? What about Saturday night? When you lay your head down on your bed and the day is over, what are your last thoughts? What are you thinking about? You're probably thinking maybe about life, maybe about how tired you are and fatigued and you just want some refreshing. Maybe you're thinking you just wish that life would slow down a little bit just so you could enjoy it and be satisfied. And maybe you're thinking, tomorrow, I'm going to go to the golf course. Tomorrow, I'm going to pick up the tennis racket. Tomorrow, I am going to take a break and take a nap. And maybe you're not panting after God and thirsting after Him in all of your heart's desires. My question to you is this: does your soul pant after God? Does your soul thirst for the living God? Are you longing to appear before God? Are you longing to be in His presence? Everything that you need, that your heart and soul long for, can be found in God. He is the source of life. He is the source of refreshing. He is the source of satisfaction. Will you come to the foot of the cross and find life in Jesus Christ if you have never accepted Him as your Savior? Will you come to the foot of the throne of God and spend some time with Him in prayer? Will you come and immerse yourself into the pages of the love letter that God wrote for you and just listen to Him speak? Will you search for God where He can be found? Psalms chapter 34, verse 8 says, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good." If you are endlessly pursuing life, refreshing, and satisfaction, and yet your day is not filled with the presence of God, then I'd venture to say that you haven't tasted for yourself how good God is. And that's what I want to encourage you to do this morning. Just thirst for God. And as you thirst for God, look for Him and find Him and be satisfied. Let's go ahead and stand for prayer.